No. You're not allowed to add any more.
Okay, we're away again. So the ebook and how useful that was and how you might change it.
So to improve it, I would think maybe more apps, maybe apps that can do different things. I'm not specifically sure what we could do, but I think that might be an avenue to explore. So it was mainly photos and videos and documentaries. Maybe we could take that like a little bit further. That could be an idea.
Could you just give me one example you can think of that might be useful to have added?
Something like, we've got like that telegami app, so something of maybe a person speaking out, some way of like linking them all together might be an idea.
Yep, like that idea. All right.
The ebook, especially if you compare it to what you would normally use on school trips, so scrap of paper that inevitably ends up scrunched up and lost, I think using the iBook was much more successful because you can't say, oh, I've just lost my sheet, I'm going to have to do it all again, or I haven't got that information because, I lost my sheet halfway through the day, so I had to get a new one. And when we went on that school trip, we went on a school trip to school on the Friday before I left, and I know a lot of students, I didn't bring my bit of sheet with me, I didn't know we needed it when we were here, or I left it at that place we were at. Well, that's no good for this task now. So I think the iBook, you can't say I've lost my iBook, it's gone missing, sorry, I've not got anything. So actually I thought it was very useful in that way.
Yeah, I thought it was useful, especially when we were like tying cot that was really big. If you wanted to check what you wanted to do, you have to go find the teacher because you could just open the iBook. Mine had problems because it crashed. So, but luckily we found the internet in the middle of the day, so I managed to reinstall it. But that was one problem then. But there was only me who had that problem. But that was one problem.
But it is a problem if the device goes down and you lose all that. If you lose one sheet of paper, you've lost one sheet of paper. But that's the downside.
I think as a visual aid, or like doing like a documentary style, you can look back on it and can almost help you remember things. Whereas if you wrote it down, if you haven't written down that essential piece of information, you've got no chance to get it back. So I think that would be useful.
Is there anything else now, swapping now, as it were, from your sort of pupil hats, because you're sort of being pupils? It's funny, really, because you're sort of being pupils and trained teachers at the same time. If you were now the leader of the group, would you do anything different with the ebook? No is always fine.
Not that I can think of, I'm sure I'll think of something later.
I think having the key tasks are important, because that means that you've got something to do at every single place, rather than just saying, go out and see what you can find. It's more specific, and I think that needs to stay. I can't think of anything to improve on.
Kevin and I have been having sort of a vague model. We haven't got very far with it yet. We've got the sort of idea that you've got sort of 3 stages in a field visit with these devices. So the first of that is the kind of stuff you'd put on the device before you took it off with kids. Let's assume for a minute you've got devices for kids. What kind of things would you put on to your devices if you're taking a group away?
So I'd probably like, for where we've done like what we did before we left, that's certain key bits of information about where you're going, about what you're going to be seeing, about any battles that you're going to be talking about. So yes, you can talk about it, but they can then look at their device and be like, right, that's the information I want really listening to. I've got that for when I now need to do that task related to where we are.
I think visual things like maps would be very useful, so that they know roughly where they are, maybe what it would have looked like at the time. I think that's really useful.
I think sometimes, instead of Stuart sat talking to us on the bus, I would maybe record something and put it on for them to listen to. Because I think we had a lot of attention to sit on the bus, but I think if you had a group of students, they would just want to get off the bus, especially a few days in. When you stop, they just want to get off the bus. So I think I would maybe do that with students.
I would say this is not, obviously, this is non-judgmental. We're not making any judgments, and we are all learning as we go along with these things. So, you will have great ideas that we won't. So the second sort of stage of our model is, and we know these overlap, but is data gathering while you're there. And you took videos and photographs. Anything else you might get kids to do in terms of data you'd want them to gather that you either weren't asked to do or things you've thought of since then?
Maybe a little bit like the museum, but extend that, where you look at something very specific. So go out and find a specific piece of information, especially if you've been to the cemetery before. Say, right, okay, I want you to find out about something very specific. So I think that might be useful.
There is a problem with that though, because I know in the museum I spent a lot of time just wandering around thinking, what was I looking for, where am I going to find it?
Maybe
a lot of wasted
recorded
time. If you're in a big cemetery, it's a bit difficult to like focus that if it was laid out as such where there'd be different areas you could go and spend your time in that area, I think that would be more successful.
Anything else in terms of data you might want to gather? Do chip in, Kevin, on your subsets.
I think because you would have a lot of students, it's like me and Lauren, we collected information about the different battalions that we could find, but there was just sort of 2 of us walking around doing it. I think if you had a lot of students, it'd be good to give them a row each and to get them to collect data on that row, and then when you get back to school, bring it all together, and then you'd have information about the whole cemetery, and they could all like feel responsible for like their row of information, and then you should have a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
So you can only do really big things if you all gave them a little bit to do each.
That's smashing. And then the final part, I guess, is when you get back. But again, this could be during as well. What kind of things would you want the kids to produce, these artefacts of learning at the end?
I don't know, I think at the iBook we're doing that sort of thing, iBook or a presentation of some sort. I know a big, nothing iPad related, but a big, like a big poster, wall display, that sort of thing, using what they've collected. Something that uses that information to display it in some way or another.
I'm trying to look at anybody expectantly, I'm sort of looking at you, slightly blurred.
There was one idea when somebody came in to talk to us, they did something called a wallpaper. And the idea is that you add things together, and it basically went around the whole room, and it was each individual poster used to say that maybe you could do it in pairs or whatever, and add it all together. It's almost like the trips around the room.
Oh.
Could be quite fun for them.
So, anything else in terms of... Okay, I'll just postulate very quickly 3 quick models at you now. So you've got a group of kids taken away, but let's say 30 children for the sake of an argument, and you've got 1 or 2 devices. What might you do with them? Any thoughts?
If you're doing groups that continue the same throughout the trip, so if you've only got 2 devices and 30 kids, split those devices so each day, each place, a different group is doing a device activity and the rest of the groups are doing something that doesn't involve the devices.
Any other thoughts? Okay, we're a bit more generous now. I'm going to give you 1 device for a little group, 3, 4, 5 pupils. What might you do?
Could be a group task. So certain thing using the iPad that they could do as a group.
When we were doing our group tasks, we tend to use 1 iPad between the 2 of us anyway.
Right.
The other one was kind of unnecessary.
Just as I'm backtracking a bit, but did you find that you fell into particular roles when you were doing that? Was one person always the film and one person the speaker?
We
or
switched it up, didn't we?
Swapped halfway through.
Yeah, so we both had 1 set of data, if you like, on each iPad.
Right, and were you comfortable with that, or did you feel you liked being more the recorder rather than the presenter? Or
We got away with neither of us being the presenter technically.
okay. So coming back to that then, anything else with your 1 iPad per 3, 4, 5 children?
You could swap the roles around. If, like, I know I've done group activities before in school where you give each person in the group a specific role, something they have to do. So if you're doing that and you've got 1 iPad between 5, at each place you can swap the roles around. So at the first place you've got a recorder, a talker and whatever else you have. If you set that up before and then swap that around each place, that everyone's getting a go doing each thing.
Yeah, I guess that's fair then. Yeah.
And last thing, if you had 1-to-1, what would you do?
Something along the lines of what we did on the trip.
Yeah. That could either be like certain tasks or looking through, having a set of tasks before you go, talking it through, and then they know when they get there exactly what they need to open and exactly what they need to do while they're there.
Okay, smashing. Any problems you had, either technical problems or other problems? We know that your device crashed out of an app.
One of mine, like, sometimes I didn't know, like, for opening, like, certain material, I didn't quite know how to get the material. Now, I figured it out through talking to other people in the group, but I found, like, some of the technical elements a little bit difficult. So, for example, it was just something opening on iBooks, but for some reason, pages had gone into just PDFs, and I didn't know how to get to the books. So it was just a simple technical thing, but maybe like making sure that everybody's clear on exactly how to use each individual app would be helpful, just to iron those out.
That's really helpful. Anything else that went wrong, or and there are no problems with battery life or with anything like that?
No. Could probably got away with both days on battery life.
Charged.
Just battery life, yeah.
Anything else, Kevin? I've asked about their own usage, their thoughts on future usage, and then just this sort of these models.
No, I don't think so. No.
Okay.